Hi folks, this is just a little kind of quick video that I'm going to show every Monday. I'll have a new one every week for whatever our topic is for the week, kind of giving you an outline for what we've got going, so that way I can just say, hey, refer to this video if you missed Monday, or if you have questions, see this video first and then come ask me if the video doesn't answer your questions. So really quickly this week, kind of our main topic is biological psychology. And so we're really kind of thinking about what we talked about last week, biological meaning parts of the brain, the things that can affect our consciousness and affect our brain, and then kind of the physical senses and tools that we have that cause us to learn and see and grow and think and all those sorts of things. So it's really very physical stuff. So with that being said, that kind of branches us off into three directions. One is still kind of keeping with the physical brain piece. Two, states of consciousness, what happens to our brain, what chemicals can affect it, so drugs and other things like that. And then third, what are our senses and how do our senses work, and then work with our brain to create our perceptions and senses of how we see things. And so what you're going to do this week is we will spend a little bit of time on Monday kind of talking about the brain for sure, because there are some things from the brain I want us to do. But if you go to your files right here, and I'm looking at second hour, but it's going to be the same for whatever hour you're viewing this in. If you go here to this week 2 folder, you'll see there's three kind of divides: biological brain, sensation and perception, and states of consciousness. And Monday and Tuesday, you can kind of look through everything. Like I said, we're for sure going to spend a little bit of time all together on the brain. But what I kind of want you to do is, especially by Tuesday, I want you to kind of pick which fork you want to get into and pick which topic you want to dive into deeper. So if you want to stick with the brain, great. If you want to go to sensation and perception, great. If you want to go to states of consciousness, that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. All three of them have a lot of stuff in common. There is some stuff that we're definitely going to all learn about the brain. So we're going to achieve what I'm looking for no matter what, but it's up to you kind of which of the three you want to go down. And so if you look in each folder, and I'm not going to take the time to go into each different thing that's in here, but you'll see I have a ton of stuff in each folder. That's why there's no way we could cover all three of everything. A lot of these are just handouts with graphs. But like you'll see here, it says lecture brain structure. This is something we'll look a little bit at together. But this will be a big resource for you if you choose to study the brain really deeply, because this has all the parts of the brain listed, or at least a bunch of big important parts anyway. But then you'll see here like lobes of the brain. This is a PDF that just has a nice neat graphic of the different lobes of the brain. Here's a video about mirror neurons. Here's a chart about different kinds of neurotransmitters. And so you've got all these different videos, images, charts, graphs, all kinds of stuff. Everything that says has a little play button here, these are all videos. So I have a video on brain plasticity. I have a video on Broca's aphasia, which is a disorder in which the person can't speak. And so, I have all this different stuff that you could dive into about the brain. Same thing with each of these other topics. So stages of consciousness, I have a whole bunch of stuff. It may still be uploading. Oh, nope, it's there. So I've got readings on the sleepwalking murders, which you might find interesting, sleep disorders and sleep terrors, theories of sleep, sleep cycles, dream theories, 10 facts about dreams. Here's my notes. All of my lecture notes on consciousness. I've got videos, like here's Demi Lovato talking about I needed cocaine every half hour, 5 stages of sleep, faces of meth. And I know you might think, wow, a lot of these things are really, drugs and sleep seem pretty different to me. Not really. Ultimately, our desire to sleep, or our brain's physical ability to sleep, has to do with how different chemicals interact in our brain. And drugs can either cause us to go to sleep, literally narcotic and narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is a disease that literally means sleep seizure, and narcotic literally means a drug that makes you go to sleep. And so they're actually very much related. These topics might seem different, but they're totally related. So what you're going to do is you'll pick one of the three: the brain, sensation, and perception, which is about sensations and our perceptions of them. And again, I have a bunch of different videos and things there. You're going to kind of look through everything I've got once you've decided which kind of rabbit hole you want to go down. And once you've picked one of these, then you're going to go to our assignments. And if you'll see here, I have 3 project options for this week. Again, they go with one of each of those options. So you have a 5 senses and perception project option, a brain project option, and a states of consciousness project option. And I'm going to quickly look at each one of them. But I'll just tell you this, they're all fairly similar. They have similar workloads. The only real difference is the topic. And then you have a lot of options too on how you want to produce it. So I'm going to look at each of these three. And actually, I'm just going to jump to Class Notebook because these are both here in your assignments and they're in your Class Notebook, and it's just easier for me to look at them in your Class Notebook with fewer clicks. So I'm going to do it that way. So give me just a moment. So for week 2, we'll start with the brain one. We'll go down the list here. So if you want to do a brain project, you're going to create a model of the brain. And this can be done using a lot of different things. You can use household materials. You can make a poster. You could make a Play-Doh brain. You could do all kinds of different stuff. You could also, if you're like, hey man, I don't have anything here on hand to do that with, you could create a PowerPoint and find some different brain images, and maybe you choose a certain image of the brain and then just point to where different parts of it are, or something along those lines. But you're going to need to have some kind of model that we can look at and point, or look at and touch, or do something with. That's part 1. Part 2, then using all these resources I've supplied, my PowerPoint, my different resources, charts, graphs, and videos, etc. I want you to choose and label 10 different areas of the brain or parts of the brain. For example, the 4 lobes, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, whatever you want. And discuss one scanning technique like the EEG, MRI, or PET scan. And then what I want you to do is label 10 parts of your brain. And then there's a couple, again, this will depend on if you're face-to-face or remote. If you're remote, you're going to have to document whatever you do. So if you make a brain out of Play-Doh, you need to take some pictures of it and whatever you kind of do, or you could video yourself talking about it, whatever, have someone video you doing it. It needs some kind of evidence that you created a brain. You could, if you're face-to-face, bring in or make a poster or make the brain at school face-to-face, and it's right there. I can see it if you're there face-to-face. That's fine. So again, that would kind of, depending on where you are, who you are, what your options are, that may look different. And then part 3, again, depending on how you choose to do steps 1 and 2, I want you to either see you or have you write a quick summary of the function of each of your parts, all 10 parts. So like the hippocampus does memory or whatever, okay? But more importantly, that's all fine, but that's easy stuff. That's level 1 and 2. I want to go to level 3 and 4, and what I want you to do is give me a real, and I put right here, give me a real-life example of this part of the brain in action. So if you're doing a PowerPoint, you could simply add your examples to each slide. But if you're created a brain, you could type up your examples and your functions and put in a little document and upload it. You could shoot a video and tell us, here's a hippocampus on my little brain or on my poster, and here's what it does. Or if you're face-to-face, you could just get up and tell me in 2 minutes on your poster or holding your brain and make a little presentation of sorts. I'm flexible. Whatever you'd like to do, I'm flexible. Okay? And if you have a better suggestion, I'm all ears. Okay? I'm totally up for whatever you want to do. And so I put an example there. I said, for example, the medulla handles automatic functions like breathing, and it does a bunch of other things, but I also put in hiccuping. So for example, here's an example of this, part of the brain in action. When I eat a lot of spicy food, my medulla causes me to hiccup a lot for some reason. Some scientists have, debated why that is, but maybe just because my body wants me to stop eating spicy food. I don't know. The last thing you're going to do is, if there's stuff you need to turn in, if you've created a PowerPoint or you've created notes or you've typed up your examples or whatever, you have pictures, you have video, whatever, gather that stuff, upload it, turn it in. Okay? And you're done. And again, if you're face-to-face, turning it in might just look like, here, Mr. Harvey, here's my poster. And, I've talked about it, presented it. Here it is. I'll hang it on my wall somewhere. If you're online, it might look a little different. We're going to have to adjust and kind of be aware of those things being different. And again, if you have real specific questions for you, I'm happy to discuss those or whatever. This is just kind of a real general quick overview. For the 5 senses and perception project, again, you can use any format you want. You can look however you want. You can use PowerPoint or Prezi or a video or a poster or an essay. You can add pictures to your essay. I'm flexible. But for this one, you got to use a total of 10 items. And when I say items, I mean kind of the 5 senses and then 5 tricks or types of perception, like shape constancy, size constancy, color constancy. If you look at my notes, you'll see kind of what I'm talking about. And then I listed a website here with a whole bunch of cool perception tricks. Even if you don't want to do this topic, you guys all ought to go look at his page. He has a bunch of cool stuff there. You can, of course, choose any 10 items you want. You don't have to pick the five senses. You could talk about blindness or deafness or some type of other perceptual experiments. Whatever. I'm kind of up for whatever as long as it's in that subject area. But again, here's what I really want to see. I want to see you thinking critically, not just copy pasting or reciting what you read. I want to see examples, something that relates to each item, relating it to yourself or to someone else or to a more generalized example. You could talk about famous psychologists who studied the senses, or perceptual cues and people who have had issues with them, or famously made mistakes related to them. I even mentioned Helen Keller here. She's famously had disabilities, and there's a lot of people out there. This is a little aside. There's a bunch of debate among some people on the internets as to whether or not she was actually disabled or was as blind or deaf as we have been told she was. I don't know. I wasn't there, but it might be that kind of stuff might be interesting for you to jump into. I threw out an example here. So color constancy is an ability we have to determine that something is the same color no matter the shading, unless there are uneven shading cues. So that so far is something I could just regurgitate. I learned it, read it, can just recite it. But here is an example. This dress, the famous dress where people said, is it white and gold, or is it, I don't know, that's the way I see it, as white and gold, but I guess some people see it as being blue and gold or blue and something. I don't know.
It's either gold or blue.
Okay, my wife says it's either gold or blue. I see it as being gold, some people see it as being blue. Whichever it is, that's an example of a type of perceptual cue that you can talk about. There's plenty more out there. And last but not least, the states of consciousness one. This has some really specific stuff. You're going to kind of cover each of the little topics that are within states of consciousness. So there's a section on drugs, a section on addiction, a section on sleep, a section on dreams, and then there's kind of an either or at the bottom that you can look at, but it's all very clear and should be pretty simple to look at, and I've given you quite a few materials. So again, this time, instead of putting a bunch of stuff in your class notebook, I had so many things to post, it was just easier to kind of put it in files. So you'll find your project stuff in class notebook and in your assignments tab right here. And again, you're not doing all three, you're just picking one. There's three, but you're choosing one, okay? Three options, you're choosing one. Right here, there's the three options, choose one. I'm going to say it as many times as I have to because I know someone's going to ask me, Mr. Harvey, how many do we have to do? One, okay. And then all the files that you need are right here in week 2. You just pick which kind of theme or which subject you're more interested in, the brain, sensation of perception, or states of consciousness, and that's what you're going to stick to, okay? I'm sure there'll be more questions. I'm sure I haven't explained everything, but this is just kind of a quick overview for the week to kind of get you started. So looking forward to jumping into week 2, and I will see you guys on Monday.